Well, hello. Good evening, everyone. Lovely as always to be with you. And we still have our Shivananda Ashram event in the Bahamas coming up, and that's in the end of March in 2026. And there's details on the website about that. I will try to plan an online and in-person retreat sometime in the coming months, so stay tuned. Yeah, and I think that's everything. Okay. Well, I had a nice break, and I hope you all had a nice break as well. And it's, of course, lovely to be back with you all. I went through a little dark night. The first week of my 2 week vacation, I spent just curled up in bed, incredibly sick. So that's just how things go sometimes. My little girl brought something home from school and kind of knocked us all on our feet, for a little bit. But anyways, I spent lots of time out in the mountains and really reflecting on life and on teaching, reflecting on just the struggle of being human and the great wonder and beauty of spiritual awakening. And so I'm going to invite us just right now to shut down our eyes and open our hearts and to really just settle in. And of course, if there's anything going on in your mind and your psychological nature, I'm going to invite you just to press the pause button on that, giving any and all struggles just permission to pause. So often in our psychological nature, it's always efforting to fix, to heal, to overcome. But in this moment, I'm going to invite us to take a big backward step. Noticing right here, right now, there is a depth of silence. And often we relate to silence as something outside of us or some type of otherworldly spiritual experience. But if we just ask this question, what is behind my thoughts? What is behind the thinker? Right away, you see that there is this depth of silence. And here at Satsang, I'm inviting us to give our full attention to this silence. This quiet, noble depth of being, depth of presence. And so we're asking this question, what is behind the thoughts? What is behind the thinker? What is behind the personality and the sense of I? And for some of you, it might take a little bit of courage or quiet sense of trust to step back and to let go of the mind. It's human to be identified with the mind. But here at Satsang, we are interested in that which is beyond mind. And so as we step back, I'm going to invite us to open, open, open. And to begin to experience the joy of this quiet radiance, which has no name and no form, which has no division, ideology, no dogma, no agenda. And I invite you to join me in drinking from this cup of clarity. This cup of non-division. To open into this unifying field. And so I'll ask you, well, what is it like when you let go of the mind, when you look what's behind the mind, behind the emotional nature, behind the body? What is it that you are? Essentially, we could all write a book about what we are in regards to our personality self, the journeys we've been on, the struggles, the fights, the things we've overcome. But again, in the space of satsang, we're opening to this quiet depth. And a depth that has no problems, no concern, no fight, no struggle. And so I'm going to invite us just to stay in this space of openness. And if you like, you can gently open your eyes and I'll welcome you here into this space. And when I was away, I spent a little time listening to an old teacher, one of my favorite teachers. And his name, he's a Zen teacher, and his name is Jakusho Kwong. And he was one of Adya's teachers. He ran the Sonoma Mountain Zen Center. And Kwong, he delivered this most beautiful teaching, about these two qualities. One being Ri and the other being Ji. And you have to forgive me because I don't know if these are Chinese words or Japanese words or Korean words, but this These two qualities that we can divide life into are basically the unborn and the born. So re being the unborn, it's this vast, spacious peace, this field, which is everything, which is nothing, which is the sky, the earth, which is the container. And G is all the things that arise, our thoughts, our ideologies, our beliefs, our struggles, our political nature, our family dynamic. And most of us know quite well the world of form, the world of G. And we somehow have learned to live in a way where we absolutely ignore the re. We ignore the great emptiness. We tend to be so utterly busy and always filling our mind with contents, internet content, media, social interactions. I was just scanning the Facebook page, and I believe it was Blair who asked a question about, well, I've been going through this awakening process, and should I force myself to socialize? Should I force myself to engage? Because I think it's good to have some engagement, but also this process, it requires lots of space. And in our culture doesn't support us taking lots of space. I even notice that, like within my own self, I have a extremely busy schedule. And it actually took some effort for me to really stop and to walk away and to not answer all the emails that I get, and not to continue teaching, just to take a couple weeks off. It actually took a little effort. And that's what karma is. Karma is this trajectory of our actions. And me, in my in my G nature, I have this workhorse that's just always showing up and offering and connecting, and doing therapeutic work and this and that, teaching all kinds of things, being a family man, and going out climbing mountains and all this kind of stuff. And so it took some real effort just to stop because my body needed a little break. We all need a little break every now and then, just to reconnect with the earth. And so just to kind of respond a little bit to Blair's question or her contemplation, like, should I force myself to interact when I'm going through a big process? I'm going to say, probably not. Like, when we're going through a big spiritual awakening process, we need lots and lots of time, tremendous amount of space. And if we do have interactions, we often need them to be either really lighthearted, like just simple, lighthearted, fun or joy, and just connecting with friends, smiling and joking, and maybe watching a silly movie or this and that. Or connecting with someone therapeutically and doing some deep work and connecting one-on-one with another. But we certainly don't need to be forcing ourselves to go off to parties or to go to random social engagements. I tend to do quite well having lots of time alone. And again, when there's a lot of energy in your body, going through a lot of time alone, a lot of space is good. as long as our mind doesn't get nutty. If our mind gets nutty, it's good to have a sane friend, someone who's rooted in a deep and noble peace to check in with or to talk with. Because sometimes if we spend too much time alone, if we're alone with our thoughts, we can really spin. But if we're alone with our experience and our experience is moving and unfolding, well, this is deeply healing. Deeply healing. And so we need more of this in our culture, this connection with connection with the unborn. And of course, if we want to be awake in a powerful way, not just some kind of philosophical way, but in a powerful way, we need to get comfortable being in silence. And when we're in this silence, we might discover that there's a lot of unprocessed material. And for most of us, this material can confuse us, and it can overwhelm us. But if we continue to open and actively accept, to work with this quality of active acceptance, not a complacent acceptance, but an active acceptance where we're leaning into whatever it is that we're feeling. I had this interesting experience as I was just way out in the mountains. I was hanging out at like above 10,000 feet for the last week or so. And there's no cell phones and internet, and just no connectivity out where I was at. And so I would open to the hugeness of the sky and the depth of the earth, coming to recognize that this is all one thing, one space, one unified field. Me and the 10 million trees, and the mountains, and the elk, and the wildcats, and the bear. And there were, I saw lots of cows. In the national forest, you can take your cows and drop them off and pick them up later. And so I had some time with some cows and chasing elk and chasing turkeys, throughout the woods. Chasing myself, myself chasing me. It's so beautiful. So beautiful. And at one point, near the end of my trip, I climbed up to the top of some mountain, and one bar popped up on my cell phone. So, I thought, okay, I'll just call my wife and my daughter and just check in. And then my wife told me, hey, that guy, Charlie Kirk, was assassinated. And right away, my heart broke. And please, I don't want anyone to get, confused and overwhelmed, with political ideology. I'm not like, a big Charlie Kirk fan, but it's just heartbreaking that to see the division, to see the confusion and the pain. And my mother, she was real concerned that there was a manhunt going on. And, I was out in the woods and that I was going to be in trouble. And I was just like, it's like mothers, they just worry. They just worry. My mom, she always worries anytime I'm out, way out in the mountains because I go out by myself. And I don't care if you like or dislike Charlie Kirk. I don't care what your thoughts are about him. My introduction to Charlie Kirk was uh, watching him watch himself as a character on South Park and him laughing with humility as the creators of South Park were making fun of were making fun of him. Were making fun of him. I think they turned Eric Cartman into Charlie Kirk as a character on South Park. And again, I don't know. I just saw it as a short. Um, not hanging out at home watching South Park, but I just saw his humility of him being able to laugh at someone making fun of him. And I just thought that was sweet. It takes a great nobility to be able to laugh at ourselves, to be able to laugh at our own political ideology and our agenda and this and that. And I thought it was really sweet, really sweet. And our poor world has just gotten so divided, so divided. And so I listened to the governor of Utah give a speech. Just everyone, please calm down. Please, words are not violence. When I was a kid, the mantra was, what was the mantra? Sticks and stones will hurt my bones. It may hurt my bones, but words, names, those don't hurt me. That so many of us in this world, we get so plugged into political fights, so plugged into struggles, so plugged into ideologies and political culture and identity politics, all this type of thing. It's destroying our country, it's destroying our world. And as we wake up, to truly wake up is to see from a space that's undivided. And so later in the news, I heard that this young man who was the assassin, the shooter, his father turned him in and his roommate turned him in. It's just like how painful that must be to be a father and to have your son be so lost, to go so dark, and to be in this situation where you have to turn your own son in, or you have to turn in your roommate or your partner or whatever it was. And please forgive me if I have the details mixed up. I just kind of looked at this a little bit. But I found myself, as I was coming back down the mountain, just deeply grieving for those who are so divided that they think they have to kill someone for speaking. And again, whether you think what Charlie says is true or false, again, I don't care. I'm not interested in that as a debate. But we have to find a way to live here on planet Earth where we can tolerate the pairs of opposites. That's one thing the awakened mind is great at, is tolerating multiple points of view and not resorting to violence. And whether it's outward violence or inward violence, like how many of us are willing to be a space that simply listens, that listens, that sees, that understands that we all get lost in pain and suffering and confusion. And so do all of our brothers and sisters here on planet Earth. And can we be big enough to acknowledge this, to allow this? I once had a kid when I was a high school teacher, and he came to me and he told me he was going to, kill one of the teachers, one of my colleagues. And this young boy, he was such a sweet boy, and he had a sweet, sensitive heart. And the other kids at the school kind of picked on him. And, but I was in this tough position because, there's things you can't say, you can't do here in this world without a great consequence. And so this young boy, he came to me and he said it once and I kind of just heard him, but then he said it 3 times. And so then I was like, hey, after the first time, I was like, hey, man, like you can't say that. And he just kept saying it. So finally, I had to call the principal and I had to have a meeting with the kids' parents. And again, they were just absolutely heartbroken because they knew their son was going to be expelled. And the school that I was teaching at was kind of like a last chance school, kind of the end of the road for I'm going to use this word with a smile, for delinquents. Like, and I was a delinquent teacher, so I don't want anyone to get too offended there. Like we were all delinquents, in the school. But this poor kid, I knew he was suffering. I knew he was struggling. I knew his parents didn't know what to do with him. I knew he didn't know what to do with himself. But on the spiritual path, we have to find an inner stability of being, an inner stability of mind. If we don't, with all the crazy influences that come at us from this world, we'll surely be lost. I certainly would have been lost if I hadn't found my teacher, all my teachers, all the great support. And so Zen Master Kwong, he has this phrase, kind of this mantra: breath sweeps mind. So with every breath, every inhale and every exhale, we're letting go of our thoughts. We're letting go of our confusion. We're sweeping it away and allowing ourselves to rest in emptiness, in the emptiness of not knowing. Not knowing. Not knowing. Now, most people have their mind made up, whether Mr. Charlie Kirk was a good man or a bad man. Was he a good Christian, or was he doing violence with his words to trans people or BLM or, whatever leftist movement he disagreed with? Like, everyone has their mind made up. I saw this It's this terrible thing on social media where all these liberal people just dancing with joy at the assassination of Charlie. And it's just heartbreaking to me. But as I looked into their eyes, as I saw them, I saw, oh, these people are suffering greatly, greatly. And the people on the right, these people are suffering greatly, greatly. The shooter, he is suffering greatly. His roommate's suffering greatly. His parents, his family are suffering greatly. I saw a young man. It was beautiful because it's just a young man from went to high school with the shooter, and it was funny because he was kind of a hillbilly, talking about this guy, and he said, Mr. Robertson, I think that's his name, the shooter. He was one of those kids who was just on Reddit all day long and just spent way too much time on social media, and he didn't really have any friends. And this guy just said, like sometimes you just got to unplug from it all and just not buy into it, not buy into all the craziness of social media, not to buy into it, not buy into the craziness of the news, craziness of the quote unquote cultural war. We don't need a culture war. We need to learn to listen. We need to learn to be open. We need to learn to tolerate when people disagree with us. The whole path of spiritual awakening is we are waking up out of our egoic identity. We wake up through allowing ourselves to lose, to be wrong, to lose our beliefs. Charlie is right. Charlie is wrong. He's good. He's bad. He's this. He's that. How many of us are willing just to see Charlie, to see life, to see each other from emptiness? From emptiness. I had this very funny experience. I was sitting at my campsite, and I've been getting up early, like 4 a.m. and been going out elk hunting. And elk are very elusive animals, And, so elk hunting for me is basically walking around in the woods with a bow and arrow and just looking for elk. Not shooting anything, just looking, just looking. And anyways, I ended up back at the campsite, and I had this little creek where I was camped out at. And all of a sudden, I saw this gigantic bull cow, not a bull elk, but a bull cow, And there was this little like rock ledge like up above my campsite. I was kind of down like at the creek, and I saw this gigantic bull. And I just looked at him and I said, "Hey, big boy," I'm like, "What you doing?" And he started to walk down toward me, and he brought his whole family with him. A bunch of mama cows and a bunch of babies. And as I was staring at him, some people look at cows and they salivate. They see steaks or something like that. I'm not a steak guy, but anyways, So I was looking at this bull, and he's looking at me. And there's this gigantic blue sky behind him, behind me, these big mountains and spruce trees and aspen trees. And I see this bull looking back, and I see that he is me and I am him. That we are the sky and we are the earth. It's all one thing. This giant space of radiant silence, of radiant silence. And I can look at the assassin, and I can look at Mr. Charlie, and I can see all those students and see that it's all me. It's all me. I've certainly been lost in pain and confusion and darkness. I've certainly experienced great heartache and loss. If any of you connect with your timeless nature, you'll know that we've all been born and died, at least 1,000 times. But the great question is who among us would choose to be sane? Who among us will put down the fight? Who among us will listen first? Who among us is willing to commune with darkness, with pain, with insanity? And be courageous enough to sit with it until it returns to its source. This is what our world needs. Individuals who are willing to sit and to be open and to return any and all darkness, any and all division within ourselves to its source. To its source. And this is the great challenge of being human. It's the great challenge of this spiritual path. Can we open that which is good, that which is true, that which is beautiful, that which is timeless and eternal? Can we open? Now, most of us have been on this path long enough where we know it's not that easy just to open, because the price for admission is the willingness to sit with all the insanity and to return it. Return it to its source. And that's one of the big things that I was doing while I was away, was sitting and returning. I noticed that I don't like to talk about this too much, but just as a teacher and as a therapist, when you meet with a lot of people, when you work with a lot of folks in a deep way, we tend to take those things on. We tend to be like a sponge, like every human being is a sponge to some degree. And there's times when we need to wash out that sponge. We need to wring it out. We need to let it sit in the sun, cook in silence, and return all the impurities, all the darkness, all the confusion, just all the stuff that's been congested in the system. We need to return it to the source. And this is one of the hardest things to do, is just to sit with your own insanity. You know, it's funny when I look around the room, most of us here in the Sangha have had a relationship with a narcissist, like with a narcissist and some of us have had a relationship with, 10 narcissists or whatever it is. And there's all kinds of YouTube channels just about diagnosing narcissism and this and that. And it's gotten a little silly, on the interweb. And some people in the song I've had to, kind of talk them down, because everyone they see is a narcissist. They're just walking around diagnosing the whole world as a narcissist. And that is true. Humans are narcissistic. That's just, we need to be somewhat narcissistic in order to develop properly. Then at some point we let go of that and move into a selfless dimension, but I don't want to get too much into that. But I'm just using this as an example because it's a dramatic example that when we've had someone in our life who've caused us great pain, often that individual, like our good friend Catherine O'Neill has told us, often that individual will live rent-free in our mind. And at some point, we need to evict them. But we don't evict them through forcibly pushing them out. We evict them through sitting down and looking into their soul and seeing that this individual is hurting, that they're hurting. And we have to give ourselves permission to grieve, to empty. It's through the process of grieving, through the process of letting go, the process of feeling deeply, but without thinking. And that's an interesting thing to do, is to feel deeply, but without thinking, without judging. So again, like when I heard about Charlie in my first day back, I saw just pictures of his family, his wife and his young children. And I just grieved deeply for Charlie's children to grow up without their father. The wife to grow up as a single mom. Like I know what that's like. It's so hard. I grieved for the shooter. And now I'm grieving for the shooter's father, for his family. There's just a young boy at my daughter's school who got expelled. I'm grieving for him because the same thing. He was, talking about shooting up the school. It's just crazy that this just rolls off the tip of our tongues. And for some of you saying, oh, this isn't relevant to me, I'm sure if you look inside with deep honesty, you'll find that there's something within you, a killer within you. If you can't find that killer, you haven't sat long enough. You haven't spent enough time in silence. You haven't been honest with yourself. When you open to the one mind, you'll see that within this one mind are all the pairs of opposites. You'll see there's rage and a maniac, a broken-hearted one, the one who thinks they're the best, and another one who thinks they're the worst, one who thinks they're right about everything, and another one who knows nothing. And the great invitation of awakening is, can we open, open, open? To this primordial peace, which is behind all movements of mind, all movements of psychology. And as we open to this peace, can we allow anything within us that is twisted, that is confused, that is suffering, that is mangled, that is traumatized, can we return this pain, this confusion to its source? And as you do so, when you look out at life again, you begin to see life without division. And this is freedom. This is a different way of living. But the price for admission into this space is a willingness to admit, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I don't know. Maybe the people on the news are lying to me. Maybe the people on social media are lying to me. Maybe they're not my friends. Maybe that's not the way. Maybe I don't need to worry. Maybe there's another way to be. And that's the invitation here. There's another way to be. It's beyond pain, beyond pleasure. You know, one of the most misunderstood teachings of the Buddha is this teaching called the middle way. And the middle way, oftentimes it's interpreted as that. Just, it's not left, it's not right, it's in the middle. It's in the middle. The middle way is transcending, transcendent of left and right, this and that, up and down. It's a whole other view. A whole other view. Where you see things as they are. The great emptiness and the great fullness. You see all sides simultaneously without aligning with one, without landing in one, without judgment, without maintaining and upholding. And in this, I don't like the word the middle way. I'm going to call it the whole other way. The whole other way. Is so radically inclusive. That its very nature, the very nature of silence, the very nature of peace begins to heal. begins to dissolve or absolve, or forgive, release, let go, makes everything right. Even that which is so utterly wrong. And that's a great paradox. That's a great paradox. It'll never make sense to the mind. The mind will always say, this is unjust. This is unfair. This isn't right. We need to fight. We need to stand up. We should throw bricks. We should do this and that. The mind of the Buddha, the mind of your essence, it's big enough to hold it all. To hold it all. Okay, so someone emailed a question. I'm going to get to that. And if anyone here has a question, please raise your hand. You have to forgive me. I might not pronounce this person's name correctly. I'm going to call it Silje. I'm going to assume this person's from one of the Norwegian countries here on planet Earth. From Silje. Let's see. So Silje wrote me a very long email, very long email. And it went something like this. Hey, Craig, my heart chakra has opened in a massive way. And I feel everything. And I'm crying all the time. So that's the gist of it. I'm gonna read some of it. Greg, you spoke to me once years ago and you told me that I have a big, buoyant heart like a juicy, ripe peach. That's a funny thing to say. I still think back at that moment sometimes. It helps me to feel better, makes me feel like maybe there's a reason. Other people's suffering have moved me so deeply. I'm just wondering if this grief will ever end. I feel like this universal love feeling has been restricted due to wounds around rejection and abandonment that I just can't get over. And there's no one to meet me there. Whenever I hear people say that it's all my own and I have the capacity to hold myself, I just get even sadder. Please let me know if there's any support you have. Anyways, okay. I'm just tired. I'm just so tired of crying. All the love, Silje. Okay, thank you. That's a beautiful email. And, many of us here in the song have been through this where when our heart opens, well, one of the byproducts of the heart opening is that you're going to feel everything. I mean, that's one of the qualities of spiritual awakening is you have this boundless, unlimited love, a love that doesn't have walls. One of the great things our ego does for us is it creates walls, and these walls can protect us from feeling. And I'll even tell you like a funny story right now is that when I was out camping in my pickup truck, well, a mouse moved in there. And when I was camping, and I don't want a mouse in my truck. I don't want, and there's a thing that happens with mice when they get in your cars. Sometimes they nibble on your wires. And, if I'm out, 30 miles out in the wilderness, I don't want a mouse eating the wires of my truck and then it doesn't start. And, then I might have to walk home 30 miles and maybe I'll die on the way or something, So I don't want that. I don't want a mouse eating the wires in my truck. And here in the Southwest, we have this thing called the hantavirus. It's a virus that mice spread. And anyways, I'm just getting over like 4 years of long COVID. I'm not looking for another virus to pick up. Like I'm not looking for anything extra. And you know, I've known people who've died from this virus. So it's something that can kill you. Anyways, an old acquaintance of mine, like he was out camping in a similar place, but he was in his cabin, and his cabin was overrun with mice, and he died. He died in his cabin, a young man. Anyways, so this mouse is in my truck, and mouse leave these mouse droppings all over your truck, and I'm just like, I'm not happy with the situation, and also I'm out in the wilderness, and it's hard to clean up all that kind of stuff, and so I noticed when I got in the truck that my ego started to put up like some defensive walls. I started to contract. We all do this when there's danger. We tend to pull our energy toward the midline. And I kind of smiled, because I was like, what the hell do you think you're going to do, ego? You think you're going to protect yourself, by pulling in your energy, and that'll make it so somehow you don't, breathe in the air of the mouse droppings or whatever. It's like our egos are sometimes they're just so archaic. They're so archaic. And so when we go through a process of spiritual awakening, one of the things that happens is, by the grace of awakening, is our ability to close down becomes much more limited. And again, like when I heard this news about Charlie, I broke into tears, like great tears. Like I really cried. I was actually surprised how much I cried because, again, I haven't really heard Charlie talk very much. I've just heard him a little bit. I've seen him on campuses debating students, and I thought it was kind of fun, just watching him debate. And um, anyways, I'm not a good debater. And again, just please, I don't want to get lots of emails from people on the left being so offended that I said something nice about Mr. Charlie Kirk. I was brought to tears. I was brought to tears because our country is hurting. And when you're awake, you might find yourself spontaneously crying. When I see the children of Gaza, I'm brought to tears. Brought to tears. It's heartbreaking. When I see how many young men have died in Ukraine, whether they're Russian or Ukrainian, brings me to tears. Brings me to tears. And so this question is there an end to the tears? No, not while we're living here on planet Earth. But one of the things, Silje, that could be helpful is to develop a depth of strength where you know and trust in yourself. So you said this interesting thing. Silje Wright wrote, whenever I hear people say that it's all my own and I have the capacity to hold it myself, I just get even sadder. And I'm going to encourage you to get sadder, to feel the sadness, to feel it all, to allow the sadness to wash over, the tears to wash over your heart, to allow your heart to break and to break and to break and to break and to break until it simply breaks open. And when we break open, we won't have resistance to sadness. Some of us, like, we look inside and we see this deep well of trauma. We say, this thing has no end. I will assure you, this thing absolutely has an end. Everything here on planet Earth has a beginning and an end. And if you allow yourself to open, open, open and feel it fully, the tears will eventually dry up. And as we work with this again and again, you might start to discover that there is this quiet, noble strength, this inner stability of mind. And so I'm going to encourage you, Silja, just to keep opening and to continue to feel. But you have to stay out of your head. If you grieve and simultaneously say, this shouldn't be happening, this is wrong, I don't like this isn't fair, this is unjust, then we'll spin ourselves into righteousness and we won't fully grieve. We'll kind of just get off in some kind of mental distraction or philosophical argument with life. And if we're going to be awake, we don't argue with life. We acknowledge this is a crazy world. It's an immensely divided world. It's a world that in a number of years, we're going to be, so interconnected with AI. We're going to have all kinds of other possibilities of chaos and confusion and disorientation. And those of us on the path have this conscious choice to be sane, to be strong, to be empty, to courageously feel, even if it doesn't feel good, even if it's overwhelming. Now, Silje wrote somewhere in his email, in their email, excuse me, in her email, numerous times, about wanting people to connect with. And Silje, I'm going to invite you to be part of the Sangha and the Fully Human, Fully Divine page, Sangha page on Facebook, and to connect with others, to connect with other sane individuals. Because it can be helpful to have some good friends on the path. It can be helpful to have a good teacher. It can be helpful to have good teaching. And it can be helpful to have a good Sangha, good friends. The Buddha called this the three jewels. When we try to do it all alone, yeah, you're right. Oftentimes it is too much. And we get lost in our own mental structures. And it can be helpful just to have someone to talk to. So anyways, I hope there's something helpful there. Let's hear from Mr. Kyle. Hi, Kyle, you here?
Okay, yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Um, what I can sense is uh, oftentimes people talk about, oh, I'm in a time of transition. I feel like I'm always in a time of transition.
Yeah.
And the quiet part of me trusts it 100%. Yet there's also the mind comes in and worries about the short term, even though I have this trusting of the long term, that's in God's hands. I know what my life is about, and my deepest desire is God's desire. But it's okay, I'm in grad school. I want to move out of this apartment and
I want you to move out of the apartment.
said, yeah, move somewhere a little bit bigger.
Yeah. I want you to have a
Stay in the
house.
apartment.
I want you to have a house. I drive by your apartment almost every day. And, I know that thing's too small for you guys. And so, sometimes our mind is right. Like our mind, it's designed to worry. It's designed to put pressure on you And there's an aspect of the mind that is literally the evolving edge of God. And so the evolving edge of God is going to, in a sense, put pressure on you to always be growing and changing and upgrading. And we just look out at life, it's just happening constantly. It's just evolution, like you can't stop it. One of Gandhi's few mistakes was that he tried to take his culture just back in time. He tried to take it back to like the Khadi movement and the British brought industrialization, and he's like, no, that's not the way. We're going to go back to the old ways, and it didn't work. It was a failure. We just go forward. There's no going backwards. And so there's part of your mind it's true. It's like, hey, we need to up our game. We need to do something to change this situation. And so sometimes the mind just there's a basic truth to it, and that is God's will. But the part of our mind that we need to work with is the worrying aspect. Worry is a quality of the inner child, or it's a quality of our ancestors. Like, I had my worrying grandmother in me for years. And my grandma, she was like an orphan, and she lived through famine and just poverty and starvation. So like I had that consciousness in me, and this is something I had to learn to sit with deeply and meet it with love, flood it with love. And in doing so, it resolved itself. And now there's just, I'm not a worrier anymore. And so you tell me what's at the heart of this?
Feels like the long-term dream in a sense, like my heart trusts it, that that's what my life is about. But yeah, I think it's doubt in my mind that's like, how in the hell can I make that happen?
Yeah, you won't. Let's put it on God. Let's have a conversation with God. And let's invite God to show us. God, show me how this works out. That's what I do if I have any sense of worry. I look up at the sky and I say, God, you show me how you are going to work this out. You, God, are the doer. You are the doer. Show me how this works itself out. And with that, I have this active conversation with God. And I like to think of myself as like a little boy, like at Santa Claus time, like, what am I going to get for Christmas? And so I'm going to invite you to turn that worrying energy, like you give it to God and you challenge God. You have this ongoing conversation and relationship with God where, God, you show me how this works out. And Kyle, I'm going to invite you to take the I out of it. Because when there's an I there, there's the pressure and there's the failure and there's when there's the I there, we're always like looking at the clock saying like, how long is this going to take? And how am I going to do this? How am I going to pull it off? And the truth is, we don't know how it's going to happen. And the truth is, we don't know how we are going to do it because God's going to do it. Life is going to do it. It's going to be revealed to us. And so this is an invitation for you to lean into that trust and to ask God to reveal it to you. But we have to remember that this path, like part of awakening, is getting on God's time and realizing that, okay, like this life, this world, it'll unfold on God's time, not on our time. Our time we have to surrender. And that demand that we place on life, well, that's not going to get us anywhere on the path. Our job is to make the steps, of course. But I'm going to invite you to just to continue to have this conversation. To like one of the things about you, Kyle, is you're such a doer. You're such a doer. And one of the gifts you can give yourself is for you to surrender the doing to God and let God show you how she's going to do your life. And that doesn't have to be like such a deep, heavy surrender. Like it can, there could be some joy in it, and there could be like that expectation of like a little boy around Christmas time, like, what's God going to deliver? Like, what's Santa going to deliver? Like, let's just see if you can be kind of playful with it and see, well, how's God going to work this out? I'm curious how God's going to work out our deeply divided country. Like, how's God going to work this out? Like, in what way? It seems like humans, we're just getting more and more and more divided. And we're either going to end up in some kind of totalitarian state, and I think, that both the left and the right have the potentiality to go in that direction. They're both pointing fingers like a bunch of lunatics. But how many of us are willing to step back and just listen and say, okay, God, you show me the way. I'm willing to put down my agenda, my ideology, my doing. You show me the way, God. And I'm going to trust in your will. And again, this is at the heart of everyone's spiritual path. Is God, you show me. I trust in you. You are the doer. Let life reveal it to you. And so as I say these things, Kyle, what happens in you? What do you feel, or what comes forward?
There's a softening in my lower chakras. There's a deeper trusting,
Yeah.
uh, and more of a connection to this outer presence as like I'm in communion with everything. Like all this is providing for me and I'm providing for it.
Yeah, say that again.
Like for example, if I'm working at the school,
Yeah.
it's like my salary is helping me pay rent and for food, but also God's working through me by like serving these kids.
Yeah. Yeah, that's beautiful. And to trust in that. And with, let me ask you, with the worry, do you have a timeline?
Yeah, sort
Yeah.
of.
Did you say sort of? You have the 3 year
Yeah,
plan,
yeah, I do.
5 year
Yeah, I
plan?
do.
Like,
Yeah, I have a timeline. Yeah.
yeah. I want to invite you to surrender the timeline and to more just have the Zen sense of it'll happen when it happens. It'll happen when it happens. And to really trust in this, to trust in like just the thematic journey, like you're headed in a direction. But the timeline and the challenges and like when we will achieve success in, whatever it is, like that's up to God. That's up to God. And like you said in the beginning, you said, well, I feel like I'm always in a transition. When we are on the fast path of spirituality, you're going to feel like you're in a transition a lot, a lot. And then one day you'll be shocked when nothing happens for big periods of time. You'll be wishing, where are those transitions? Where's that always that next level thing happening? Like, where's like sometimes God has taken me into the great void for months and months and months at a time. And it's like, nothing is happening here. But even when nothing's happening, something great is happening. We're being moved into supreme emptiness. And at the end of the day, we have to just ask a basic question. Do I trust in my will, or do I trust in God's will? Do I trust in my time, or do I trust in God's time? And of course, everyone trusts in their own will and their own time. But as we age, we come to discover the supreme arrogance of our own thoughts, where we realize everything will fall into place. Everything will fall into place in God's time. In God's time, not our time. It'll happen when it happens. And at some point, we begin to realize, oh, it's actually a lot better this way. A lot better. A lot better. And God does actually know what she's doing. And so I'm going to encourage you just to see, like, every time your mind comes forward with this agenda, like, we're just returning it to the ground of being. We'll see. We'll see. God, you show me. You show me what my next step is. You show me what the truth is here. You know, my graduate school was supposed to take 3 years. I think that's what it's supposed to take. It took me like 4.5 years. You know, and that's just what it took. What it took. I started with one class and I ended with another. And the same thing when I went to college. It took me like 5 years, maybe 5.5 years, to get my teaching certificate and everything. And I went to India in there somewhere too. And so, yeah, it takes some time. It takes some time. But I invite you to see that God is here all along, teaching me, leading me, guiding me. And for those of you who don't like that word God, there's this quiet intelligence. Quiet intelligence. You know, I do this thing in the fall where I go out hunting and I never kill anything. All my hunter friends, like I have friends who hunt grizzly bears and this and that, and they we'll go to Tajikistan and hunt some wild mountain goat or some crazy thing. And they hunt Alaska and all over Colorado and Utah and this and that. And they have all these big trophies on the wall, these big animal heads and this and that. And I just walk around in the woods quiet. So that's what hunting is for me. Just connecting with the wildlife. And I love it. I love it. There's no goal, there's no loss, there's no defeat, there's no shame, there's no humiliation. I mean, my friends all make fun of me, but it's just like walking around the woods with a bow. And just seeing the hugeness of the sky and not worrying about any goal. Not worrying about any goal. Just being empty and being free now. Being in communion with God now. Seeing that God is here carrying you all along the way. And in regards to any pressure in your mind of doing, you can also channel that energy just into a basic question of like, is there anything in my life where I'm just going to use this word, excuse my English here, but am I like effing around anywhere? Am I wasting time anywhere? Am I distracting myself? And if that's the case, we might want to adjust that. But this pressure to hurry up and get there, let's have a sense we are there. We are here. This is where I'm supposed to be. This is what's now. And can I be with this? And so, it's good to be with you, Kyle. At the time, I guess that's it for tonight. So much love and respect to each of you. So nice that you all showed up again. I always wonder, like, if I take a break, is everyone going to disappear? Is everyone going to run away somewhere? Find a cooler, better spiritual teacher, songer, whatever it is. And if that's you, God bless you. But also, it's nice to see y'all back here. It's nice to share this time, and I truly love just being with each of you, and I feel so honored that you share your hearts with me. I just feel so touched by it, so close to each of you. And I want to just thank you all for your continued patience with me. And I know I just go back and forth all the time with what to speak about, and it's just heartbreaking to me just seeing our world so politically divided, and it seems so unnecessary when we all get together and talk. I like I'm just going to quote Charlie again. I hope I'm not pissing everyone, all the liberals off tonight. Um, they say if you disagree, like you really disagree, like come to the front of the line, like come talk, like let's talk. Let's talk. I think more and more in this world, can we listen? We don't need to debate. Can we talk? Can we listen? When we come together, it seems we all have so much more in common. That's why it's so heartbreaking. So heartbreaking. The shooter and the one who was shot, both, both are God. Both have beautiful hearts. Both need to be heard and honored and respected. Both need to be listened to. Both need someone's shoulder to cry on. Both. All of us do. It's so hard being human. So please, if there's, folks in the song, if we've gotten divided with anything, whether it's against friends and family or political orientations or right or left, up and down, this or that, can you open? Can you let go? Can you grieve deeply? Can you return all the pain to its source? And so let's just bring our palms to our hearts. Let's pray for unity to triumph here on planet Earth, for love to heal all wounds, compassion to shine, for new, greater harmony and balance to flow, to spread throughout the internet, throughout cultures, throughout countries, throughout nations, throughout this world. May love triumph. May peace triumph. May truth triumph. And so, good night, everyone. Much love. So much respect to each of you. Good night.